Warhammer 40K!
That is what they say. Warhammer 40K.
Warhammer 40,000.
Warhammer 40,000.
Y'all, these decks are insanely packed with absolute commander heat.
If you're not paying $250 to buy the non-foil bundle of all 4 of these decks and you just want to cherry pick singles, let's just get into the video. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Hello and welcome to the day.
Thank you for spending your time with us.
I am Catherine Zeta-Jones.
I'm Topher Grace as Venom. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. We have got Warhammer 40K cards to talk about. There are so many of them. We're just going to get into it. But hey, if you think about it, if you like the video by the end of it, hitting that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet really helps us out.
And there's also a pinned comment below if you decide that you want to order any of this product. We do have it pinned. As of the filming of this video, if you get the 4 decks collector's edition, it's like $700 or $800 for the all foil warped, or whoa, I didn't say warped.
Maybe
I
not.
meant surge foil. Surge foil, we don't know if it's warped or not. And if you want to go the non-foil way, you can get all 4 decks bundled for $250. I've seen it lower, but on TCG it's around $250. Joel, we have so many cards that we're talking about today because these decks are honestly just packed full, like you said, of really good commander cards. Today we've cherry-picked, kind of picked the ones that we think are going to have like a wide application that a lot of different decks are going to want. We should just get into it.
Starting off with Vexillus Praetor. We've got about 30 cards to go through, y'all, so this is going to be a good one. Buckle in and let's talk about some brand new commander heat. 1 white, 3 other for a 3/4 flashing vigilant warrior. It says commanders you control have protection from everything. Flash this in. Your commander can attack through any blocking line without hesitation and survives all removal.
Yeah, it's just an amazing card, back-breaking card. Good application, whether you're swinging or trying to protect it from spot removal. Do keep in mind it's still going to die to like mass sacrifice and like board wipes and stuff like that because you don't get protection from, you know, getting destroyed. But yeah, it's still a very good card. Very strong card.
Looking at Sister of Silence next.
1 blue, 4 other for a 3/3. Big ability on this card. Flash. And it has Psychic Abomination. When Sister of Silence enters the battlefield, counter target instant spell, sorcery spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. The big reason this card is on here is because of that activated ability or triggered ability. Just has a nice suite of counter built into it. And if you get this card back to your hand, you can use it again. Just a lot going on here for 5 mana.
Yeah, I like a counter spell that leaves a body behind, and anything that says tap this, sacrifice it, do this, counter that ability, that thing is still tapped and sacrificed. So sorry, see you later. Great Unclean one is 1 black, 4 other for a 4/5 demon. It says at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 2 life. So a little Punisher effect over time. Those add up really well in the right deck. And then for each opponent who has less life than you, create a 1/3 black demon creature token named Plaguebearer of Nurgle. So any sort of Punisher, Aristocrats type deck where you're really trying to keep your life total high from life gain and their life total low from Punisher effects or drain over time effects, you're going to get another body created that then you can sacrifice for more effects.
Yep, you're getting bodies, you're draining your opponents. This card just has Aristocrats all over it. It's a bigger piece at 5 converted, but it's still very strong.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it.
Next up, we have a legendary creature, Lumina Eris. For 1 black and 2 other, we're getting a 3/3, and it has tap, sacrifice another creature, add an amount of black mana equal to the sacrificed creature's mana value. So if you're able to build your board with non-token creatures, remember tokens aren't going to count, but if you're able to build non-token creatures into your deck that you're possibly able to get back, think stuff like Gravecrawler, this is going to get you some extra value out of your creatures. And if you sack bigger stuff, you're going to be able to ramp into big effects. So very, very strong card here.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to have 3 mana on the battlefield tap this, sacrifice a 3-mana creature, go ahead and get my Bolus Citadel out onto the board as quickly as is humanly possible. This is the kind of ramp that, black has access to a lot of times. And so it on a body repeatedly is a really fun effect. Litchguard is up next, and we know this one's a little bit narrow, but we still like it. A black and 2 other for a 2/3. It's got 4 mana, sacrifice Litchguard, return all legendary creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Recently, we've had a real onslaught of legendary matters stuff right on the heels of Dominaria United. And so I know that there are going to be people that have picked up that precon and are looking for good cards from it. Litchguard was printed for that deck. I promise you want this card in that deck. And now, right after these come out and people are breaking them up for singles, will be a good time to pick this up.
What I like about this card is it gets better with age. It ages nicely. The more legends we get, the better the card gets, because the more legends matters type decks we will get in the future. If someone wants to do an oops all legends type build, this is 1,000,000% a card you want in there. It's just so much card advantage, and you could get it back again. Next up, we have Mandate of Abaddon. 1 black, 3 other for a sorcery. Choose target creature you control. Destroy all creatures with power less than that creature's power. So a very strong card. You definitely want to build this into a deck where maybe you know that your commander's typically going to have the most power, or you know that there's going to be a lot of big creatures in your deck in the 99 that are going to be able to play off of this creature and most likely blow everything else up. The big thing after a board wipe is you want to make sure that you've maintained a board position, and this allows you to do that.
Yeah, I told Jake when we were going through these cards before the video, if I see a card and it immediately slots into both Korvold and Prosh decks, it's probably going to be a pretty widely played card. And so a board wipe here that leaves your biggest creature here, because you do kind of want to build this into a deck where you're reliably going to have the highest power creature on the battlefield as much as possible. Mandate of Abaddon couldn't be a better board wipe, especially since it only has 1 black pip as part of its mana cost. You can fit this easily into a 3+ color deck. We're real big fans. We also really like Necron Deathmark, 2 black, 3 other for a 5/3 flasher. When it ETBs, destroy up to 1 target creature. That's pretty much as far as you need for most decks. This is going to be a better Ravenous Chupacabra for like 80% of decks that would want that card. Plus, it also allows you to mill 3 cards off of a target player. So mill yourself so that you have some fodder in your graveyard to resurrect. Maybe you're playing against a top of deck matters deck. You can mill 3 cards off of their library at instant speed, really piss them off. But yeah, that instant speed, Jake, I think that's what puts this card over the top for me.
Yeah, Flash is, oh man, it's such a big deal. I mean, people play Noxious Gearhulk. People play Ravenous Chupacabra. I think this card fits nicely alongside cards like that. That Flash just, it can't be understated. It's one of the most powerful effects in MTG.
Yep, really love it.
Next up, we have Nurgles Conscription, and for 1 black and 4 other, we're getting a pretty powerful instant. Put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control, then exile that player's graveyard. So we're getting a really nice 2-for-1 here. We're getting something out of their yard at instant speed, most likely on an end of turn, maybe before our turn. It comes back tapped, so we don't get to use it as a blocker, but we are going to have, most likely, we would hope, with 3 opponents, whatever the biggest, most impactful creature from the yard was. If you build your deck in such a way where you're milling stuff into their yard and you can reliably use this to get something impactful, that's really good. But yeah, very strong being able to exile that player's graveyard as well afterward.
I like this in response to a card like Dread Return. There are so many graveyard matters decks running around now. Dread Return, they're flashing it back, they're sacking some creatures. In response, you're grabbing that creature card that they targeted instead. Their spell is whiffing, you get the creature, and just for insult to injury, you Bajukabog their graveyard.
Ooh,
I do think that this card's got legs. Instant speed is the only reason this card would be on the list. I think it's sorcery speed. This loses a lot of power because it's already a card where you're relying on your opponent's decks, and you don't 9 times out of 10 want to do that. When you're building your commander deck, you want to rely on yourself and your plan. But because it is instant speed, I do think it has some application wider than just in like a resurrection deck.
Yeah, and Rise from the Grave effects typically come at sorcery speed, so this is really cool being an instant.
Yeah, absolutely. Poxwalkers at 3 mana is a 3/1 Death Toucher. It says whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, return Poxwalkers from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Even though it's tapped, I love that it's graveyard to battlefield. This has to be built into a deck that is reliably going to be providing you with these sorts of effects. Graveyard, whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, any of your flashback stuff, that would trigger it. Anything like Prosper, where you're exiling cards and then you can cast them from exile. I do think that Poxwalkers has applicability wider, even though it does have to be specifically built around. And look, a 3/1 with Death Touch, that's just going to be obnoxious the whole game.
I would like this card even if it were a 1/1 with Death Touch with this ability. Like the 3 is great, but this just being a Death Toucher that consistently comes back again in a Prosper type build, something like that, like Joel said, this is going to provide really good fuel for you to just constantly have a blocker. And, you know, a lot of the time in a deck like Prosper, you're just speeding out of control, just casting so much stuff. But, you know, a Death Toucher for free, constantly, really good.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Bloodthirster. Let's talk about this big beefy demon. 1 red, 5 other for a 6/6 flying trample, and whenever Bloodthirster deals combat damage to a player, untap it. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase, and Bloodthirster can't attack a player if it has already attacked this turn. So the more players to attack, the better. If no one has been eliminated, you can get 3 attack steps out of this card. Yeah, it's just degenerate. It's just like for people that like taking extra combat steps, there's tons of cards that exist out there, and this one's a demon. One thing about these Warhammer sets is we're getting lots of artifact support. We're getting lots of demon support. Yeah, pretty cool card.
I love this. This is the kind of thing that I want to give haste to. Wait until there's no flyers in the air. Maybe we can protect it. They're tapped out, whatever. Bloodthirster comes down, starts swinging. Like Jake said, you get up to 3 different combat steps. That's ridiculous. You could have a 4th, I think, if I do the math right. Bloodthirster attacks the first person 1, second person 2, third 3, and then you do still get an additional combat phase, even though Bloodthirster can't attack during that combat phase. So if you've got the right board, this is a win condition. Bloodthirster is absolutely insane, and we love it. Looking at the other end of the spectrum from Big Beefy Bomb, we've got sweet little mana dork. 1 green, 1 other for a 1/3 biophagus, maybe? I don't know. Tap it to add a mana of any color. That would already be good. A 2 mana, add mana of any color. Those get played. Can't tell you how many, like, of the 2 mana, add a green creatures are played in Commander every day.
3 toughness.
Yeah, exactly. This one's got 3 toughness, but it's adding any color. And if you're casting a creature spell with that mana, that creature gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Just sort of good generically across the board for me.
Yeah, I think so as well. 1/1 counters, you're building that into counters matters type synergies. You know, you're doubling seasons, all that stuff. You know, we could talk about all those cards. But yeah, I mean, it's a mana dork that gets better. It's good.
Yeah, love it. Any color.
Yeah, now Bone Sabers. 1 green, 2 other for an equipment, and this is going to turn even your Bird of Paradise into a threat. Whenever equipped creature attacks, put 4 1/1 counters on it. Now you build that into a counters matters type synergy with doubling season. And the equip of 3, man. I mean, this is just a very strong card. It's just very strong. It turns even your most humble creature into a threat when it attacks. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I love that any of your little 1/1 flyers that can get equipped suddenly become 5/5s when you attack with this. I do think it's a really fun equipment. Here's the one for a creature deck as well, Jake, and they shall know no fear. You do have to choose a creature type when you cast this, but it's only 2 mana for the instant. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. There are legitimate tribal decks at the top echelon of Commander play, casual play, not CEDH obviously, but Jake, you could also, in a pinch, choose your commander's creature type and save your commander from destruction. I think this is just a nice little utility uncommon that people are really going to find they like putting into decks.
Yeah, for me, it reminds me of a heroic intervention, like a baby heroic intervention for tribal decks in white. It's pretty sweet. It plays alongside Teferi's Protection, in my opinion. It's just redundancy for your board. It's just a really strong uncommon. It's one of the only uncommons on this list. Definitely worth picking up. Next up, we have Old One Eye, and for 1 green and 5 other, we are getting just so much value. We're getting a 6/6 trampler. Other creatures you control have trample, because why not? But then, when Old One-Eye enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 green Tyrannid creature token. Okay. So 11 power for 6. And then it also has fast healing. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard 2 cards. If you do, return Old One-Eye from your graveyard to your hand. Obviously, you have to pay the mana to cast it. Hopefully, you have something to reduce the mana. But even if you don't, you're getting that 11 power again. So say you're just drawing lands late game, well, stock them up so that you can get Old One-Eye back, play it again, reestablish a board position. That's what I like about this card, is you're consistently reestablishing your board. You're getting a 6/6 trample and a 5/5 that's going to passively have trample as well. It's very good. Very, very,
11,
very, very good.
Dude, 11 trampling power for 6 mana, and it comes back. This is one of my favorite green creatures ever. This is maybe one of the top green creatures, period. This card is just ridiculously good, even in the 99. As a commander, it'd probably be fun, but in the 99 of like a Gruul Beats deck, Old One-Eye is absolutely insane. I really like Toxicream in a multicolor deck and as sort of a utility shut off your opponent's lands card. 4 mana for a 2/4 reaching Death Toucher. All lands have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Hey, hint, hint. Those of you that bought the 5-color precon and you're trying to upgrade it, go grab Toxicream because it will act like a Dryad of Elysian Grove for you. It's gonna make all lands lose all other abilities than tapping for any of the colors. But, I mean, in a 5-color deck, what are you doing? You just want every land on there that taps for 2 mana and doesn't have a drawback. So you're definitely going to run this. And you might catch your opponent's Cabal Coffers in the crossfire. Maybe turn off their Gaia's Cradle and be like, haha, that's a lot of thousands of dollars and doesn't work.
Maybe force them to use their wastelands and their strip mines in response to playing it because they know that they're no longer going to be able to do that. So it's got like almost a Blood Moon type effect built into it. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a really cool card, and I like it for the same reason as well. When we were talking earlier about the return all legends from your graveyard to your hand, this is the kind of card that ages better the more multicolor stuff that comes out. This is one of those cards that's just going to be like, well, are you running Toxicream? Because that's going to fix your mana. It does an effect like that. And we haven't even really talked about the Reach and Death Touch. It blocks really well. It has a 4 toughness, and it blocks nicely. So yeah, I mean, pretty sweet little card here. And it's a Tyrannid.
It does a lot. It does a lot. Atlan Jackal is a card that also does a lot.
Yeah, 1 green, 1 red, and 1 other for 2/2 trample haste. And this is something we don't see on Magic cards a lot. That's why this is on the list. It is a rare. Whenever Atlan Jackal deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So this should remind you of Sword of the Animist, except it's on a stick. And we all know how strong Sword of the Animist is. If you're running a lot of basics, you should be running that because it's going to ramp you out the gate, baby, in a big way. I like this card. It puts it on the battlefield tapped as well. It's thinning out your deck. It's ramping you. It's really good. It's squishy. That's the only thing I don't like about it. It dies easily, but it's a really good card.
Yeah, you should build this into a deck with +1/+1 counters. Maybe you're running the equipment that puts 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Slap it on the Atlan Jackal. Suddenly it's a 6/6 trampling haster. It's definitely going to connect. Jake said it. Basic lands, searching those up. You're not going to play this in a 5-color deck because most of your land slots are probably not basic lands. You want like 2-color deck, 3-color deck for Atlan Jackal. But I think that this one has a lot of potential because of that haste. That haste makes it so that you can hold it till an opportune moment where there's definitely a get through when it's a 2/2, or you're already prepared and you have a way to grow it, and it comes with trample as a side note. So I really think that as a Gruul card, this one will hold a unique place as a card that gets better over time and just has legs as we continue on. Birth of the Imperium, Jake, a saga on this deck. A black, a blue, a white, and 2 other goes into an Esper deck. Phase 1, you create a 2/2 creature token with vigilance for each opponent you have, so up to 3. Phase 2, each opponent sacks a creature. Okay, just side note. Hopefully we're not hitting token decks, but you know, anybody that just has their commander out really got to start working hard to get that remedied before the second phase. And then phase 3, draw 2 cards for each opponent who controls fewer creatures than you. Obviously you're building this into some sort of tokens matters, go wide strategy. Jake, this does a little bit of everything.
Dude, I have noticed recently that sagas, it's just so much passive value. After you make that initial 5 mana investment, so say you have 3 opponents, you're getting 6 power for 5 right there. Then, passively on your next turn, each opponent's just sacrificing a creature.
And you're doing other things.
Yeah, and you're doing other things with your mana. This is just operating in the background. Then after that, you're drawing 2 cards for each opponent. So after you've already cast this, you're trying to figure out, how do I make sure that I have more creatures than them? How do I make sure I have more creatures than them? Do I want to make sure I board wipe and save this? And then I'm just going to draw 6 cards. So, I mean, think about like the value that you're getting for a one-time 5 mana investment. You build this into the right deck, it's just value town, dude. It's just absolute value town. And I think that the sagas in MTG are proving to be, I mean, I'm seeing sagas pop up in so many constructed decks just because after you've made the 1 mana investment, like you said, you're doing other things.
Just moving right along to a very expensive mana cost card, but hopefully goes down sort of like a blasphemous act.
Blood for the Blood God, 1 red, 2 black, and 8 other. Wow, that is very expensive. But wait, you can decrease the cost. It's an instant speed. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. So think maybe after a blasphemous act, maybe after a Wrath of God. Hell, you can do it at instant, so time it when it's best for you. But then you're going to discard your hand, then draw 8 cards. Blood or the Blood God deals 8 damage to each opponent. Oh man, comes with a big punch. And then you exile it, because doing that more than once is a little bit much.
Nearly a 10 chunk to each opponent, on top of the fact that you're going to put 8 brand new cards in your hand. Even if you had other cards in your hand to discard, like, don't wait to time this. Even if you have like 2 cards left in your hand, just pitch them. Those 2 cards, 8 cards greater than those 2 cards in a lot of situations. I love Blood for the Blood God. I think that Rakdos decks are going to want this so bad. I really hope they reprint this somehow, because I could see this one potentially going up really alongside any deck that wants Blasphemous Act. And look how many times they've had to print Blasphemous Act into precons so that that card could be kept down in price because they know it's a staple. This just seems really good alongside that. It's Wheel of Fortune-ish, deals 8 damage to each opponent just as a kicker. What the hell?
Ooh. The way that I feel about this card is, dude, I think that people are just, they're going to figure out a way to consistently play it. And the way that I would play it, the way that I feel like I would play it, is I would just wait for the situation where I can cast it for cheap. I would just never even worry about the cards in my hand. Unless there's something I'm really setting up, and I have to have one of them, I would just say, oh, here's my opportunity. This card's online. Let's just do it. We're just gonna cast it whenever we can. Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, because the cards are still going to your graveyard.
Yep. Talatus Assassin is up next. It's a shapeshifter. 6 mana for a 3/3. It's got flash. You know we love instant speed. You can have it enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has an incredible line of text as well. Whenever this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 other target creature with the same name as this creature. Ooh. You have an old gnawbone? No, I have an old gnawbone.
Yeah, and yours is dead. Enjoy. Yeah, it's just, it gets better the better your opponent's stuff is. It's one of those cards where, you know, if you're going into a blind, you know, pod of people you don't really know what you're playing against, it's most likely going to find something. That's how I feel. And yeah, it's just a really strong card. Flash, again, 3/3. The body doesn't really matter, but yeah, when it comes in, it's going to enter as a copy of whatever is the most big and powerful thing on the battlefield, is how I feel.
And it's going to kill it.
It's good.
It's going to kill
really
it.
Good. Next up, we have Company Commander. 1 black, 1 white, 2 other for 2/4. So nice toughness on this. And it has, when Company Commander enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 white soldier creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. So it's going to come in as a 2/4, bring 3 1/1s with it if nobody's been eliminated. And then it also has, whenever Company Commander attacks, creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. So the whole line, the whole squad getting Death Touch. That makes it really tough for blocking.
Yeah. I mean, 5 power spread across 4 bodies for 4 mana, plus an attack trigger of your whole line gains Death Touch, and suddenly decisions about blocking become much harder. Chump blocking that 1/1 with your 5/5 isn't as easy if it's a little 1/1 Death Toucher coming through, I really like this in a go wide strategy with tokens. It's kind of fun in an Aristocrats build because you could attack with these things, and then if they do get through with the Death Touch, you're good. If they're gonna die and they're like Death Touch, fine, you're killing something. Or you can just sacrifice the 1/1s that it brings in. Maybe blink this. This is in the right color to Ephemerate Company, Commander. Get multiple 1/1s off of every single blink on this. Little Conjurer's Closet action. I don't know. This is just the kind of card that really speaks to me. I love the go wide. Honestly, I feel like this card wouldn't be on the list without the attacking trigger of creatures you control gain Death Touch.
It's a lightning rod.
Dude,
it's a lightning rod too, because people want to block it. So most likely you're going to get in with something else that's bigger. You know, it's one of those cards where it's like you're sitting, it's like a thorn in your side. It's not killing you, but it's like
so obnoxious.
Something that you have to deal with. It's really annoying.
Yeah, at some point you got to block and kill it, even though it's going to take something out on the way. Pink Horror is a very interesting card for 5 mana, blue and red and 3 other. 4/4 Demon Horror. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 2 damage to any target. But when it dies, you create 2/2/2 blue and red Demon Horror creature tokens named Blue Horror with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature deals 1 damage to any target. I think that this is one of the most ridiculous clone targets I've ever seen in my life. Cast Quasi-Duplicate. Pink Horror deals 2 damage to any target. Create a copy of Pink Horror. Now the next time you cast some kind of crazy spell, you're dealing 4 damage split as you want, 2, 2, or 4 straight up. And then if they do happen to deal with it, it's still doing that much damage, just going wide. So I feel like it's any creature that opponents have to like kill more than once, just like smack it down, keep grinding it down is so annoying to deal with. And that's how you know a card's good.
Yeah, I would play this alongside stuff like Sulfuric Vortex and, Furnace of Wrath to amplify the damage that it's doing. Cards like that. I do like that this card deals damage to any target, so you can clean up the stuff that's really annoying you, whether it's just mana dorks on the other side or some creature with a good ability. I think that the card has some legs. You definitely want to play it alongside storm type stuff.
Yeah.
Next up, we have an enchantment that seems like just a Gruul staple. 1 green, 1 red, 1 other. For an enchantment that says the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast.
Ridiculous.
We all know how difficult enchantments are to remove. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player. So it's just punishing people for casting non-creature spells, the first one anyway, but it's letting you ramp. It's a great card that's mitigating the cost of your first creature spell you cast each turn. It's very good. Very good.
If you play this on turn 3, on turn 4, you can cast without any other ramp a 6-cost creature straight up on turn 4. Obviously, that's best case scenario, but you're just trying to figure out the mana return if you do happen to play it on curve. Shadow in the Warp is really fun. I love that it's also got this, passive damage built into it. Kind of reminds me of Rurik Thar. Little bit of, this kind of card definitely goes in that deck, punish them for casting non-creatures. This is a creature deck. That's what we're going to be playing today. That's what you use Shadow in the Warp for. So I think it's very strong. And at 3 mana, yeah, it's an enchantment.
Ooh, baby.
It's just so fun. Golden Throne is a legendary artifact, 4 cost. If you would lose the game, instead, already love it, exile the Golden Throne and your life total becomes 1. So it's a, hey, I have this on the battlefield. That means you've got to kill me twice. Got him. At least if you're going the combat damage or some sort of direct damage. Life total path, you got to kill me twice. And then it also just has this ability to tap it, sack a creature, to add 3 mana in any combination of colors. I love this. In a pinch, ramping those 3 mana of any combination of colors, sack a creature, whatever. An ETB creature that's already done its thing on turn 2 or 3. Now suddenly you can turn that creature into mana so you can ramp into something big. Golden Throne's got a lot going for it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, sacrificing an Eternal Witness in this, like early on, we were talking about cards where you had to have non-token creatures. You can do this with tokens.
Yep.
You can sack a token to get that. 3 mana for 4. I mean, it's a Thran Dynamo essentially, where you need a creature, but you're getting colored mana, which is great. But then, yeah, the life support is really cool. Now, if they're holding a shock, which, you know, who in Commander is holding a shock? They could kill you, wait for you to exile this, and then shock you right after. It's not like it's giving you protection.
No.
Or any type of thing after that. It's just an oh shit button. It's the kind of thing where if it's on the field, people are thinking about it and they're going, well, I do have to deal with that. I do have to get through that. So if I swing, you know, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to swing through and try to kill them this way. But wait, it can't just be a combat step. We have to have something else because we're just going to deal with the Golden Throne this turn. It's just a pesky card with upside. And it's honestly one of the weirdest mana rocks I've ever seen. It's really strong.
Yeah, I like it. Earlier in the year, I played a Tevish Zat deck for a while in our Commander League, and honestly, being able to tap and sack one of those Thralls to turn it into 3 mana in any combination of colors, that would have been pretty sick.
Yeah, next up we have Inquisitorial Rosette. 2-cost artifact equipment, and it has whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 2/2 white Estrates warrior creature token with vigilance that's attacking. Then attacking creatures gain menace until end of turn. It has an equip of 3, so really easy to equip. It's an equipment that goes wide. You're not getting any kind of buff from it, but you are getting creatures from it, and then you're getting menace from it, which is a big deal. It can slot into any deck. It can be equipped to anything. Pretty strong equipment here.
All attacking creatures gaining menace is really strong. That's what put this card over the top for me. Wasn't really high on this, but attacking creatures all getting a relevant ability can be really, really powerful in the right build. Jake, I think people are going to know that we don't play Warhammer 40K over our pronunciations of some of the cards and names on these cards. I think that's Astartes. I don't know. Let us know in the comments how we pronounce that word and any other words that we've mispronounced throughout the video. Knight Paladin, we've got a 5 mana 6/6 that I can definitely pronounce the name of.
I think it's pronounced Paladin.
Knight Paladin, trampling 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to each opponent. This is a card that I want to Conjurer's Closet. I love that. Plus, a crew of 1. Turn your 1 power thing into a 6/6 trampler. Knight Paladin's very fun.
Yeah, I like a card that just needs to sit on the battlefield passively. This is a great thing for them to drive. A card that you don't want to send into the opponent's line. Think of something like when you tap it, you're getting an ability as well. This is a really cool card. It's a 6/6. It deals a lot of damage when it enters. And yeah, 6/6 trampler with a crew of 1. Anything can crew it.
I love with vehicles, wipe the board, play some kind of, just get a 1 power thing onto the battlefield, and you've suddenly got a 6/6 trampler ready to go.
Ready to go, baby. Now for 7, we're getting Reaver Titan. Big 10/10. It has protection for mana value 3 or less. Okay, nice little passive. Can't be jumped. Then it also has whenever Reaver Titan attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent. Pretty crazy. Then it has a crew of 4. Crew of 4. So I'm thinking Grease Fang for this card. I'm thinking anytime, it's crazy to see how much vehicle support MTG is getting since vehicles came out, I believe all the way back in Kaladesh.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time we saw it. And back then it was like, are they going to keep doing vehicle support? Is this going to be something? And now we see they were setting something up because they're like, wait, we need this mechanic. We need some sort of permanent type that caters to all these different vehicles throughout the ages in MTG. And now we've seen it in Warhammer. We see a Sika's Chariot, all these different sets that get vehicles. And yeah, this is one that I think the more vehicles we get, I mean, this definitely, in my opinion, goes into Katori. Anything that wants vehicles, Grease Fang, pretty crazy card here.
It doesn't have trample, but that protection from mana value 3 or less is at least going to guarantee that they can't just create a creature token every turn and chump block it, because this is going to punch right through that. We're not worried about baby creatures.
Or path.
Right, exactly.
Any kind of like swords. Yeah, dude.
I love it for that reason. 7 mana is a little steep, but talk about a crazy fun vehicle. You're looking at the right one. And this artifact is absolutely insane. Resurrection Orb, 2 mana. Equipped creature has lifelink. Okay. Whenever equipped creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So they either have to kill the creature, then exile it from your graveyard, or they have to kill the creature and then wait till it's come back, and they've got to kill it before you can re-equip Resurrection Orb to it. Anything that makes your opponents have to do something twice to accomplish something once, if you follow, is really strong across the board. And Resurrection Orb, I think, is going to be a thorn in people's sides.
It having an equip of 4, it's a little steep. But even though it has the equip of 4, we had to put it on the list because it's just such a back-breaking ability, especially when you get to late game where 4 mana, you just want anything that you stick to the board to come back. You're just like, I'm casting this, let's put the orb on it. Hopefully you build this into ETBs, get back some ETBs. Very strong card, very cool card, very exciting.
This is the kind of card that really makes the argument, hey, you should probably make your targeted removal exile in case they're running effects like a Resurrection Orb that are just going to bring it back.
Now, you know what we need to talk about? We need to at least get one land on here. Let's talk about Tomb Fortress. We got a land. It enters the battlefield tapped. It does tap for a black, but it has this really fun ability on it. For 3 black and 2 other, tap, exile Tomb Fortress, mill 4 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So if you mill stuff into your yard, think whatever the biggest thing is. Hopefully it costs more than 5, but maybe you just need to get something back, something that's an integral part to closing out the game. Tomb Fortress, the reason it's on the list is because it's a powerful effect on a land, which means it's not going to eat up one of those important spots in your 99. You can build this into your mana base.
We've got a TCG player link pinned as the top comment of this video. If you want to pick up these decks, go click on that. Go click on it before you buy anything at TCG Player, and that's going to help out the channel directly at no extra cost to you.
We are sure that there are some cards that we missed that you're just like, boys, how did you guys miss this? What the hell were you thinking? We get that. We were trying to shoot for wide application that a lot of decks would want. Make sure you're subscribed because we're covering some of the other cards that we didn't cover in this video in shorts and stuff like that. There are some crazy Warhammer cards. These decks look really good. Let us know if you're planning on picking any of these up.
Other than that, tapped out. See you later.